Hello and welcome to another Artis Opus React. My name is Byron, and what I'm going to be doing today is reacting to miniatures sent in by viewers of the channel. So I've got a theme for today. It is going to be Mechs and Robots. Pretty excited about this. If you would like to submit something, the address is submit@artis-opus.com. Do feel free to include some information about your miniature. I often provide feedback. I'm going to say how cool I think something is, provide some feedback, and just give my overall impressions of it. If you're looking to work on your blending or your metallics or something like that, let me know, and then I'll be giving you better advice. So I'm genuinely looking forward to this one. We've had some pretty cool submissions in recent ones, and we were trying to see if there was another theme. We did Grimdark, and I do quite enjoy robots and mechs. What I'm expecting to see here, I should probably say this beforehand, is what I really love in mechs is, chipping and weathering and like industrial processes, a bit more like military modeling techniques is the type of stuff that I would expect to see here, and lovely metallics, oil, stuff like that. Let's see if that works. All right, and I should have obviously said, I'm sure Imperial Knights will feature. So they have featured immediately in purple. This is from Adam Conrad in Australia. I mean, it's cool. It's very cool. Your channel's really opened my eyes to different techniques, the ways to paint things fast to a high standard. I recently shared your videos with a friend who is new to painting, and now he has his first fully painted Ultramarines army. Wow. Anyway, I thought I'd share my Imperial Knight with you. I think it's my best model to date. It's part of a much larger Space Marine army that I painted for armies on parade. Dude, please, 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 please send in that army. I would love to see it. This is wicked. It's also quite fun. The little smiley on his shoulder, like, awesome. Some really nice suggestions of light here. I don't know if the photo was lit from the side, but areas like in front of his hip joint on the mini itself, that's pretty cool actually. You can see those little purple sections really suggesting that they're lighter on one side than they are on the other. Whether it's lighting in the photo, in which case very good job on your photography, or the miniature, or a bit of column A and a bit of column B, that is great. I think it is possibly a bit of column A and column B. I really like it, dude. Normal criticism for a lot of stuff is, something that heavy. There's two things, and one of them is really hard to do. It would be sinking into its environment. Very, very hard to pull off. Brush stroke, if you're aware of him. He recently painted a baby knight, and it was sinking into the sand it was in. It looked amazing. But also that sand, or whatever the environment is here, this pretty nicely picked, by the way, fairly black and white environment, it would be working its way up his feet, even if it's just, taking some greys up or something like that. It's great, really like the chipping. A couple of close-up photos would be hugely appreciated if you do send in anything again, because I think the chipping and weathering is lovely on there. I would have maybe had a bit more rust, but I do love rust quite a lot. Okay, next we have John Price. Quite a cool bust here. Been painting for back painting rather for just over a year. Decided to mix it up and paint a bust. Always a good idea. I think it's a great idea to people to paint a bust. It forces you to do something that definitely isn't going to go in any army, so it's nice to just have a bit of a change of pace. Finding metallics pretty difficult. All right, let's have a little look at these. Especially knowing where to place highlights, as it makes making metallic paint look visually interesting. Any advice would be greatly appreciated. So great extra information there, absolutely. One of the things that's easier and more scary on larger scale miniatures, so busts, is that you can just let lighting and volumes do their work. When you're working small, you need to exaggerate things, but sometimes quite scarily when you're working on a larger piece at least, you can just let the material or colors that you've used be lit and do their work for you. So I'm not sure what brand of metallics you're using, really impossible to tell from something like this, but your highlights, like on those sections on the front of the face panel, they are in the right place. Top tip, prime it, put it under a lamp, change the angle until you're happy, snap a picture, and then work from that picture as your reference. It's an amazing way to pick where to place highlights. The other thing is, if you're not using really shiny metallics, I know it sounds like a stupid thing, but some metallics are shinier than others. So make sure you're using really shiny ones. I use Vallejo Game Air Silver quite a lot. And then what I do is, in the shades, I just add a bit more black to the same paint. I have no issues with the paint, and to make it darker, I just add other things to it. But it's a really cool bust, nicely toned, nice purple. Really like the gem on the forehead as well, yeah. Pretty tasty. I would have worn that gun handle a bit more. It stands out, and I think maybe just a bit more bashing on the edges or something would be really cool, but really nice. And your metallic's pretty good. Like, I think your placement of the highlights is is fine. So maybe just a bit more nuance. And it could be that you just need to go to a brighter final highlight and that'll make everything work. Often it's the last 10% that makes a difference with miniature painting. Wow. What is this? It's cool. This is a conversion I did for Space Wolves Murderfang. Well, the name is cool already, as is the miniature. I would like to know your thoughts on the overall composition and pose. Any paint tips are appreciated as well, from Austin Smith. So conversions with models in funky poses, one of the things that I like to think about is the center of balance. Luckily we have one here. So this model works because, you know, where those wings are, I've added them to the model, but it still looks like its center of gravity wouldn't have been affected. Equally, when I did this guy, I imagined the wings would have no weight, therefore they could be out behind him in a way that looked, you know, unnatural in terms of the model, but not unnatural in terms of real life. Anyway, slightly off track, but that's the type of thing that I like to think about. And this model looks like he's got a pretty good center of gravity. You know, he would be there. There's nothing that breaks physics in his pose. Second thing, and this comes from looking at comic book art work, there's a book called Marvel Comics How to Draw, which is just incredible for this type of thing. It's got one diagram about exaggerating poses, and you know, if you're gonna punch someone in a comic book, you don't just punch them like this. You know, it's all the way back, all the way forward, and they catch it, and it's all hyper exaggerated, and it looks pretty cool. I mean, comic book artwork is incredible. So maybe this guy could have been slightly more exaggerated, but overall, dude, I think it's really good. It's a very nice idea. And then the only thing that stands out as kind of breaking the composition is that the wolf pelt hanging on him would maybe be swinging a little in one direction. You'd have to have a piece that was right for that though. So I think it's really tasty actually. It's such a cool idea, and it works pretty well. The pose on those legs is really good as well. I think you should be proud of exactly how you've made that work. Okay, cool. We've got something from Bones Malone. We've got Armiger Warglaive striding down the shore of a frozen lake. Kitbash the heavy stubber into a heavy flamer and put some spare bits. And Milliput needs painting minis. Love any criticism you have for me. Okay, so this guy's base rim is neither clean or finished, and that's something that I'm an absolute stickler for. Really does make a huge difference. So the snow, I'm not sure exactly which one you've used, but it's quite hard to make snow work. I'd say the snow on the rock has been more successful than the snow on the miniature, and the snow on the mini is a really, really hard thing to get right. You know, even good artists struggle with this type of thing, but super solid start. Scrape with a blade or your thumb or whatever will remove it, the edge of that base clean, then paint it black, unsurprisingly, and a little bit more weathering on him as well. If there's that much snow collecting on top of him, there'd be a load of snow collected on his feet, for example. So just think about how this would behave in the environment you've put it in, being a very snowy one, and then you know, maybe a bit of Googling. I'm sure you could Google like snowy tanks or something like that and use that for reference, but that rock really works. Like, that looks embedded in nature, and I think that's actually the strongest part of your piece. So everything that's made that work, see if you can apply it to your model. Obviously your model is not stationary, it's moving through its environment, but pretty solid, nice colors, and a little edge highlight on those purple sections and yellow sections I think would really help them pop. And you could also dot the rivets with a wash, which just brings attention to them, but super solid. Right, well, that's pretty damn good, isn't it? Okay, this is really, really good. There's extremely high level work from Jason Newman. I've been watching your reaction videos and enjoying them. The video on streaking grime in particular was fun since I've been using it for years. One thing that I make a lot of use of is applying it through the airbrush very lightly as a filter after the second coat of varnish on transfers. The extremely stark white and black on transfers often makes them look really out of place on a model. I agree with that 100%, it's why I paint mine sometimes. And the streaking grime can desaturate those intense colors, making them look more real. That's an amazing point we're learning here. In particular, if you gloss varnish, transfer, do a bunch of repeated applications of microsol to get the transfer extremely flat, and then varnish again to seal and hide the edges, you're in a great position to do this technique. Since you're putting over the sealing layer of gloss or satin varnish, you can easily remove any errors or overspray with a swab or a sponge. Yeah, absolutely fair. Once you have things where you want them, simply lock them down with a passive varnish and return the model to a paintable state. You're going to do whatever. Aside from the general use of weathering, this fellow had a lot of filtering going on, and it helped blend the line between what I put on him in the transfer, what was freehand, and what was a mix of both. Plus he has a mostly black base rim. That's just a gorgeous model. I'm going to really struggle to criticize this. I particularly like his shin armor, whatever they would be called. They just look awesome with a two-tone, like it's very, very nicely executed, dude. Like really, really, really good. The metallic's quite clean, but you know, that works, and I like that there's a difference between him and his environment. This really, 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 really shows how much of a difference it makes just to take the weathering, or the environment from the base a little bit up a model's feet. And I really like where Jason's made sure that it's collected in the areas where it would collect. Anyway, Jason, that model is gorgeous. Please send in more. That is a really, really high quality miniature. How long did it take you? As a big boy, done to a high standard. Just amazing. All right, this is from Keith Chapman. We've got a killer can here. Critique my metals. Would like to improve them to give them more depth. All right then, I can definitely help out with this. Unpainted basing material is not a fan of mine. I'm not a fan of unpainted basing material. It's not a fan of mine either, apparently, because I'm always insulting it. Anyway, I'd paint that basing material, metallics and depth. Good question. So what I like to do is, I find something that you can kind of double down on depth with metallics by using non-metallic paints to paint their shadows. And then what you get is you push the contrast in two ways. You get a contrast from dark to light, but you also get a contrast from far less shiny to far more shiny. And that really pushes, you know, round volumes and stuff like that. And it's fun and it's easy and it's forgiving. You can do that two ways. You can just, you know, use a wash over the metallics, or in your initial stages, you can mix a bit of a paint with them and then just reduce the amount of non-metallic paint as you go up through the highlights. This is pretty solid though. I like the different tones. Nice chipping, evident there on the shoulder pad, and the vertebrae is pretty good. I think, dude, yeah, try that out. A few more washes. Washes really help add depth in general. The Citadel ones are absolutely fine. They're a bit too shiny for me normally, but on metallics, that, you know, if anything, that is a slight plus. I think this is really nice. That red section, I would chip around the edges with a bright silver to make it look like it's been worn and chipped off. But you know, I think it's pretty good. There's just a tiny bit more nuance on this, and it would be great. His War symbol on his shoulder is also very nicely edge highlighted, and I think that view of the model in particular, with the shiny smokestacks and stuff, is that's definitely the strongest part of it. It looks awesome. But anyway, really lovely mini. Been a while since we've seen anything orky roboty. Oh, another big one. All right, Eli Campus from Phoenix, Arizona. It's another knight. It's pretty awesome. I like this base. I really like this base. It just looks like he looks like he's just wandered into a battle and he's going to be the scariest thing there by a long shot. Good colors chosen as well. Nice use of transfers. Really striking. He's mostly Army Painter and P3 paints and washes. Interesting choices. Base coat of black, Krylon primer, and paint 2-in-1. Finish my models with a matte coat on top as well. Interesting. So it has got a very uniform, consistent finish. Brushes from Walmart. I hate you should use Artis Opus ones. They're fantastic. Any pointers on my highlighting and overall color schemes, as I feel my color choices and highlights have something to be desired. I would really like to know, would using better brushes and supplies give me a better overall finish model, or do you think I should stick to what I've been working with? Thank you. I am fairly biased here. I do think you should use good brushes. However, you're painting a very clean, crisp, obviously well considered and well planned standard. You know, it's evident just looking at this mini. It is neat. It is inside the lines. Your placement of transfers and stuff, and the execution of the transfers looks to be really good. Or freehand, you know, whichever it is in these situations is done really nicely. Using better brushes will help, absolutely. Places on this model that I would tweak a bit. So you've got these lovely trims and stuff. Like if we look at his, on the main large photo, the lower left piece of armor that's got that like axe symbol and the sunshiny eye thing. Brilliant description, Byron. I'm sure that's going to help Ronan out loads. Anyway, if you look at the trim around that red section there, you could get a bit more depth in them because it's such a large model. I think that's, you know, it's an opportunity to play with areas that normally would be impossibly fiddly on other stuff and you'd have to do with very delicate techniques, but you might be able to do them with dry brushing in this instance, for example, a medium or something like that, and you could just slowly buff around these. The brushes will last forever, dude, as well, especially with this type of work. They're very durable brushes and it's very soft on them. A little bit of buffing around these sections will pick out metallics, and metallics just pick up in such a gorgeous way. They're also lovely to dry brush with which a lot of people I feel don't appreciate fully. That'll work really nicely. But yeah, it's executed beautifully, really, really nice. Take its environment up its feet a little bit, but I really like where you've put it. It's quite interesting to see it's plonked in what is kind of like a generic fantasy environment. It could have been, you know, in some war-torn battle wherever, but I actually quite like it. Looks like it's on like Mongolian plains or something like that. You've got different types of metallic on this piece, and I would love to see a tiny bit more depth to the weathering. So you've got areas like the silver on the shot from the back above, working into the recesses there. Maybe you put a few washes in and push the depth a little. But yeah, it's really good, dude. Solidly executed. And I think there's nothing wrong with your color choices. Maybe I would have used a slightly brighter highlight like you've got on the toes of that beigey color. The highlighting on the toes is really nice, and that isn't so evident elsewhere. Like you can't see it on the shoulder pads. You can see it on the head carapace thing. You can't quite see it on the loincloth. Maybe taking that highlight all over the model will just help those other bits pop, but it's really well executed, man. If you like recommendations, if you just want to start out testing a couple of brushes, Series D large or medium will get you a lot of stuff. Depends whether you want to be doing detail-y stuff or, you know, large work, and a S size 3. They're like, if you want to test out with a couple and just see what you think, then by all means do let us know. They are super strong brushes though. It's a lovely piece, man. You should be super proud of that. I really like the little blue rubberized joins between his legs, just, you know, providing a little point of contrast, and that color's evident in the spikes as well on the miniature. So I think the colors are really nicely considered. Right, we've got Kyle Torres from Buffalo in the USA. I'd love to hear what you think. I'm getting into commission painting. I wonder if I have the chops for it. Thank you for your time. He's a mech from Gloomhaven. That's a cool model. So many colors. Quite difficult to paint stuff of this scale in this fashion, I feel. Pretty funky. I think it's just a little bit of smoothing the blends, mate, but you've tried to fit quite a lot in a small space. One thing I can pick on is, so the stripy hazard stripe leg, you've kind of edge highlighted it with silver, but it should be weathering. I think that should be a stuttering highlight. So, you know, not going all the way around perfectly, but tack, 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 tack with your brush, you know, it's natural wear and tear. It won't happen in a uniform manner, so just stuttering that will do a huge amount for the realism of the piece. Really solid though. And regarding commission painting, whatever your level is, you know, you just have to cater for your audience. So, you know, some people out there just want 3 base coats and a wash done, and that will make them overjoyed because they can get their models on the table, which they've not had time to do. So anyone can be a commission painter. You just got to pitch it right and make sure that, you know, you're actually working for an amount that you're happy for. JP Royer from France, this is pretty cool. Thank you for the videos. I started some Dark Angels in green using your tutorial, then I started Death Ring video of Indomitus. Just changed the steps with a bone color. Here's my Redemptor Dreadnought. I hope you will like it. I do like it. I really do like it. I think it's pretty cool. I would dot the rivets. They're a nice point for contrast. And maybe some like streaking or further weathering, but you've got quite a lot of opportunities here to put in alternate colors. I think it's a really nice color, but too much of it is that color. So anywhere, like you can see in his like elbow joint on the model, there's some bits that could have been metallic. I would have done them metallic. I think breaking up the color will make you appreciate it more. Like sometimes less is more in this case. And then a final thing is that red on the gun is pretty flat, which is fine, but maybe I would chip it or weather it or edge highlight it. Any of those would be absolutely cool. Plasma glow is pretty effective as well. But yeah, like just, you can see kind of around the bit where its head would be if it had a head, whatever, you know, the viewing slot bit, where you've got the different colors going on. I think that makes it look really, really nice. And you've got those metallics there, and I would like to see that in more other places on the model, but that is great. And great job on taking one of our tutorials, taking the steps and just changing the colors. I really would encourage it for anyone. Ronald Baker, just looking for general feedback on this Catalyst Game Labs Timberwolf from the Battletech line. Battletech is it's a pretty historic game. I'm not sure what scale these are at. I'm pretty sure it is small though, so I will give feedback in that manner. It looks like just thinning paints would help a little bit, man. It's quite difficult when painting stuff at this scale to do things like that, but often I would let the model do the work for you with washes or something. Depends whether you're into washes, you might not be. But yeah, letting washes do a bit more of the work, and then whatever your gray was, just thinning it and, you know, make sure your base coat, spend the most time on your base coat. You can like stipple it, you can airbrush it, you could spray it, but if you're painting it by hand, like 2 or 3 thin coats will make a really big difference on something like this. Battletech are older minis, so you're it's a little bit of an uphill battle in that respect. So you kind of have to work with them and against them at the same time. It's pretty solid though. I like the shiny canopy, but yeah, some washes and thinning paints more I think would really help on it. All right, what have we got here? We have, this range is just so cool. Hoping you can give some constructive criticism. I'll try and make it constructive. On the attached photos that I can apply to any other model in the same army. Tech Priest. Okay then. Now, I've said this about previous Skitarii models. I quite like my metallics to be a bit weathered. I don't know if that fits with them thematically. So take that one or leave it. A little bit more depth added to the recess sections or around the rivets and stuff like that, I think would really go down well. I like your glowing skull. I think that's very effective. And I quite like the colors you've got in the skull. You can see the different stages you've gone through there. I think that's really well considered. I think the blue wires, they need to, maybe a dark wash over those would help it gel a little bit more with the rest of it. You've already got a contrast color in the yellow, and I think the yellow hazards are super effective on those. But, you know, this has been to battle. It is, you know, there's going to be oil and stuff around, so maybe just a soft wash, even if it's just at the points where the wires join the metal, maybe a soft like sepia wash or something like that would do some good work there. Nice though, really do think it's solid. I would add a bit more depth or contrast or something that is new to that base as well. It's executed really crisply, but a final dry brush highlight of maybe like a bony color mixed with your previous color could be cool, or a couple of tufts and they can be completely dead, or a skull, or you know, anything like that, because you've got the red on the cloak and on the mini, and just having something slightly different on the base I feel would be quite helpful. Also take the colors from the base up the feet of the miniature. But really good work. I love those models so much. Nice, another knight. This should have just been called Knights and Other. Steve Stott from Kansas in the US. This is really solid. Really good. So I'll pick on one thing here, because quite a lot of it is executed really cleanly. There is a panel on here, the model's left leg, which is a white panel, and it looks like it fades from, it doesn't fade smoothly enough basically here. So you've got white, and then there's just like this splodgy brown line. There should be some more like gradient between the white and the brown. It shouldn't appear quite so aggressively in my opinion. So you could even do this retrospectively, take a bit of the white, a bit of whatever the other color is, mix it into the white, and then you can use that to fade one into the other, because think about it this way, why is that only happening on the white panels? Like, you've got a smoother transition in your red panels, why would you not have the same smoothness of transition in the white panels on the same piece? You know, it would be weathered to the same degree and stuff like that, but pretty solid. The green sections for me, they are a little bit flat, the glowing sections, so maybe suggesting the shape in there by you know, just dotting a wash in or something like that. If it's brighter or darker, it wouldn't matter, but just to break up on that rear view, for example, those green sections you've got, it's flatted out a bit, but it's pretty effective. I like the base as well. This rim is gold. Why would you do it? Good painter as well. Look at that plasma glow. Michael Goldsberry from Johannesburg in South Africa. Like, you've got super crisp edge highlights, you've got a well applied transfer, you know, pretty well executed metallics, lovely plasma glow. The base is letting this piece down, in my opinion. So there's a couple of things. I think you should have used smaller sand. Well, that looks like small gravel rather than sand, or mixed it up or something like that. I think that would work better. Also work the colors from the base up the model. But I do not know why that base rim is gold, and I cannot stop looking at it. This miniature is great with my hands covering its base. The plasma glow is really well done, man. Like, really well done. Your edge highlights are super crisp, but I don't know, like, this model is executed so nicely that I don't know if that's been sent in to troll me with the base. But yeah, definitely, that base could be better, in my opinion. I think the size of the sand makes it quite difficult to dry brush stuff like that well without it looking a bit weird. You are trying to simulate, you know, something in miniature, therefore sand would be rocks, and these would be massive. next to that guy's feet. So yeah, maybe I'd use a smaller basing material and I definitely wouldn't have my rim that color, but otherwise, like, really good job. Nice. So Nathan in Cardiff has sent in a custode something. Thank you for your kind words. 8 weeks into starting Warhammer 40k and really enjoying all aspects of the hobby. Nice, man. Really an experience with painting and especially painting models. Recently done a Custodian Dreadnought from Forge World. Used the tips from your YouTube and it worked brilliantly. Any tips for improving the model overall? Well, dude, like, you are doing amazingly well given your time in the hobby. So I think these guys in the fluff are meant to be pretty clean and shiny, so I won't say anything about weathering. But what I think you could do is whatever your gold is that you've used might be Retributor, probably is Retributor. It looks like you've got gold and a wash. And the wash is working really nice, especially around the filigree on it and stuff like that. I would take a dry brush, so like a Series D large, probably here, maybe medium. It's a Dreadnought, so you might be able to get away with large. Mix your gold with a silver, a strong silver ideally, a nice shiny, bright, crisp silver, because they're custodes and they are shiny. Remove practically all of it. Can be on your texture palette, but remove practically all of it. Test it somewhere else. It should be just about, if you test it on the back of your thumb, it should be just about picking up the creases in your skin and stuff like that. And I'd use that on top of this gold, and what you'll get, because you've got nice depth from the wash, nice base from whatever the base is, and then you can add a highlight on top of that, and that will, you know, instantly upscale this entire model's gold, which is a lot of the model. I recommend doing that, but you should be super proud, dude. That's really, really, really nice. Work the basing. Said it for every miniature apart from one so far. Work the basing up the feet of the model a little bit and it will really help the overall effect, but you should be massively proud of that and I would like to see more of your work. Okay, we've got Marco Brancial from Slovenia. Nice lenses, dude. New to miniature painting, even newer to Warhammer. First finished Warhammer miniature, Skitarii Ranger with Omni specs. Got lost on the cloak a bit. Cloaks are intimidating, man. Unsure about general highlights. Use layering and washes plus Tesseract Glow on top of the grayscale for the green, which gave me a product I'm very happy with. Yeah, it's really solid, dude. Thank you for taking a look at it and all the great content. You are welcome. So I'll concentrate on the cloak because you said you had issues with the cloak. Cloaks are hard because they're big and they're kind of flat and you don't know what to do with them. My default is get a nice flat base coat, wash it all over the same color, and then you can mix a tiny bit of your wash in with your base coat again for this stage. Just, if it was a curtain, just fully block out the bits that are raised, leaving the bits that are recessed. And that might just be enough to really help. You know, you can do more around the obvious angles on his hood and stuff like that, or creases on his arms. But for the flat bits of the cloak, I would do that. And another thing that is beautiful with it, you know, you can just leave it there and that might well be enough. Something which is beautiful cloaks is around the rim, you can just take whatever is your basing color and dry brush it a little bit on the rim to make it look like it's picked up dust and wear and tear from just general, you know, everyday war that these guys will be walking through. But it's a really solid model. Those lenses are wonderful, and actually the colors are nice. You know, the blue next to the green looks super effective, and the gold and the silver are quite nice as well. Maybe drop a bit of a wash between the gold and the silver sections, just, you know, nudge it into the recesses, and washes will do this nicely and well, and that'll help separate the two. But yeah, really solid result, and thank you for the kind words. Nice. Another night. Of course, another night. I'm an amateur hobby painter. Pretty good for an amateur, dude. Nice glowing in his three-pronged claw thing. And we've got some pretty tasty freehand on there as well. Okay, how did I miss the guy on top? Okay, this is as metal as it gets, isn't it? These metallics are cool, dude. I feel like they're just a really subtle, buffy highlight dry brush from being like skyrocketed as well. They're really good. The depth on this is awesome. This is really good. Yeah, a little bit more depth on the metallics by adding a final highlight layer, I think would definitely go down well. Take your basing material, not material, but taking your basing colors up your model's feet would work a bit as well in him, but it's really solid, man. Those gold sections, maybe introducing a little bit of verdigris or just further depth to the smokestacks, I think would help exaggerate the nice colors you got on there. But it's really cool, man. Cool is the word, and you should be super proud of it. Wow. So this is an example of using a punchy color and just letting it do the work for you. This is great. So this is from Nick. No second name. Saw your vids and wanted to see if I could get a review. I've sent some images of my work in progress Imperial Knights. It's not finished yet. I'll bear that in mind. Thoughts on the paint job in general would be great. It's candy red air brush for the carapace. For the metal, I followed your Imperial Knight tutorial with brighter metallics. Okay, cool, dude. For the base, I plan on a marble staircase with toppled columns leading to a cobblestone pattern made from milliput. That sounds ambitious, but I'm sure would look amazing. Not sure how to add weathering, and I'm a bit scared to any suggestions. So that was actually going to be one of my points. When you do stuff like this, it's really, really intimidating to weather stuff that has, you know, quite a nice finish. And it's one of the, you know, you get a lot of strengths for using techniques like this, but it is one of the negatives of them. What I would do, man, is maybe that, so there's a couple of ways you could go about this. Also, the shot from the top looks so good. Look at that red and gold next to each other. You could just take weathering from your environment and work it up your feet and then not have it make its way to the shoulders. This thing would be super huge, so, you know, maybe that is viable, and maybe it's brand new and shiny also. But where you can get it, in particular, the metallics, so the blue steel ones, which are great. You followed the tutorial really nicely there. Maybe get some rusty stuff in the recesses or suggest some oil streaks or something like that. In the gold, you could put some verdigris on, up to you whether you would like to do that or not. It is introducing another color. Obviously, I'm slightly biased towards turquoise because I love it, but I get what you mean about being scared of ruining the job. So maybe just considering taking, you said a marble base, but you could take a bit of dust in the steps of your marble staircase that you're planning on making and just bring them up the feet of the model. And that's a nice way to introduce it, you know, in a way that doesn't seem completely unnatural. It's awesome though, dude, like really, really, really nice. Maybe could have taken the gold to a slightly brighter highlight just by mixing gold and silver and then, you know, gently, carefully buffing or edging it. I would buff it though because it's got such nice shapes on it that it seems a shame to not use organic dry brushing. Great work though, really like it. Wow, that's nicely done. Okay, so we have here Pete Parmiter from Dorset. Good work, especially on this this top torso section of this model. That is crisply executed. Dotting rivets. I've been talking about dotting rivets. Dotting rivets looks great. All of those look awesome. So what I mean by dotting them, just to be clear to people, is the entire model's been painted and then it looks like, I could be wrong here, but I'm fairly sure it's correct, a dot of wash or paint has been put on the entire rivet, allowed to dry, and then you re-highlight the rivet itself with the colors from the model. Looks good, looks really good. It's such a nice clean color. I wonder how it would look a bit streaky and weathered. The only thing I think that probably isn't particularly successful here is that the green from the model has made its way up to the top of the feet, and it looks like, because you've got two colors on the feet, one is dark, one is light. The darker one is closer to the ground, the metal, and the lighter one is a bit higher up. Because you've put green over a light base, it's showing a lot more on the higher up sections, when obviously if it's come from the ground, it would be a lot more evident in the lower sections of the feet. So either work it into those lower sections of the feet more, or maybe even you could re-highlight the beigey sections, the creamy sections, and then that would push the green back down a bit and leave the edges clean, and the edges are the bits that, you know, would be the least green anyway from the environment. It'd work its way into the recesses, so maybe give that a go. But yeah, pretty good. The glowy section from the plasma, it's making its way down the rest of the section, past the filament more than the light would be able to reach. So maybe I would tone that back a little bit. You could do that with washes or maybe just something for a future model, but otherwise, man, like really crisp, well executed, good use of transfers and nice colors. This exactly shows what I was saying about on the previous one, of a similar color actually, where because the sections between the panels are silver, it just breaks it up really nicely, and I think it's super effective. All right, another night. This is a Armager, isn't it? This is the one that I've done. Photos of my Armager Warglaive, a few of my first attempts, detail, base, and weathering. Okay, well, it's nice. The rim should be black. Surprise, surprise that I'm saying that. This is good though, you know, clean, nice metallics. Now, something that stands out for me on this is the metallics are great all over, apart from on his cowl. And I had this one painting this model, so I know why you've done this because I actually did it. You've kind of edge highlighted it, whereas the rest of it looks pretty organic. So whatever you've done on the metallics on the rest of the model, particularly that weapon, the weapon is badass, the legs are awesome. Paint that metal bit in the same way, maybe mask behind it, or just be careful with where you're going, or even put your thumb in the way or something. But it looks like you could be using organic dry brushing, buffing techniques to catch the carapace in a way that more fits with the rest of the model. Really good though. I like that. That base is painted nicely. Like, there's a really good concept of light hitting those chips and stuff. It's slightly exaggerated, it's awesome. Black base rim, maybe add some more depth to the sandy parts with a final dry brush, really soft, like a buff. This is done really well, dude. Squire JJ, you should be pleased of your first attempt, because that is awesome. Really nice, nice colors as well. Okay, another Skitarii. This is from Tin in Germany. Hopefully these miniatures can help make the next video. I'm waiting to see. I've made several angles so you can better judge my painting skills. Thank you for the great content and the reliable painting tips. So let's have a look at this. So this has an example, you know, that basing, which is always or very, very regularly evident in Skitarii. It's been broken up by some rocks and it really does quite a bit of work for them. I would take whatever the red color is from the base. I don't know if it is the texture paint, in which case you'd have to find a paint that is as close to that as possible, or you can actually dilute the texture paints. It's not, you know, it's a bit weird because they're grainy, but it can work. I would dilute that quite a bit and then wash it over the rocks so they are embedded in their environment. I use the same thing and work its way up the feet of the model. The black works quite well. Bit of like smoke burning on the edge of his weapon might look nice. The glowy bit in his cattle prong, definitely a cattle prong, isn't it? Really effective, and it is nice and shiny as well. So yeah, overall very good work, dude. And there's not too much I can criticize. Yeah, work on that base in the way that I described, and the metallics are really good. They look very shiny, so I can't really criticize that. All right, Ross Dibben. Haven't been painting long, a couple of months. The Space Marines I'm going for this, battle worn and dusty. I use Zenithal, but I think the Macragge Blue, even watered down, isn't transparent enough to make it effective. Any advice on what to try, either model-wise or skill-wise, would be cool. Okay, so the difficult thing with weathering is that I think you've got to, there's many ways you can go about it. You can do it from stage one, or you can start and then pretty much finish a clean model and then add it afterwards, which is how it would appear in nature. You know, something went into battle all shiny and lovely and it came out all screwed up. So I think maybe too much of the weathering has been present from the early steps, and maybe you could be doing it more retrospectively. I hope that makes sense. So maybe working on the model cleaner and then think carefully about where it would land as well. You know, it's the bits that stick out, the bits that punch things, the bits that hit things, the bit that would be shielding, all of that is where the weathering would be landing. So think about it on the placing. You've got quite a lot of weathering on the flat front panels, either side of his chest, but not particularly on the edges of your model. So I would literally keep the overall global amount of weathering on this model the same, but take it from the central panels or the center of your panels and push it towards the edges, the bits that get bashed. So that's the first thing. And then the other thing is, I just don't think the base has been successful due to too much contrast and slightly too heavy wet paint. So the bits of rock are really large, therefore they need to be treated a bit more like individual rocks rather than part of the same thing. So I think you've gone from dark through to light, and maybe you needed to go from mid-tone through to light. So gently buff them up. The way that the feet have accidentally been caught by your dry brushing is actually more how I would have the rocks look. So if you want a reference, look at the feet and then maybe approach the rocks themselves like that. But it's pretty good though, dude. The colors work well, and there's certain sections like the weathering inside his clawy hand. 40k knowledge is amazing of mine, obviously. Power claw, whatever it is, magna claw or something like that. That looks really, really good. So there are aspects of this. The front of his chest where it's chipped more, it sticks out, makes a lot of sense. But dude, for early days, that is great, and you should be super proud. And it's a lot of it is just about thinking about how stuff would happen. I know it's an unrealistic hobby and it's people fighting in space or whatever, but weathering would land on certain bits more easily and other bits less easily. Nice. This is funky. All right, I would love to hear your thoughts about this Reaver Titan I painted about 2 years ago. That is a big boy. Very, very funky base. I don't know. So that blatantly has really, 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 really well referenced trench warfare. Really, really nicely. That kind of cutout aspect does suggest depth. It's pretty out there. So I'm not sure entirely what to think of it, but I can't deny that it is really effective. And there's a little shot there of the weathered bit with the tally marks on it. That type of story styling is amazing. I am well in love with that. The panels that kind of have got that almost organic ready thing going on, they're awesome. Not sure how that's been achieved, but it's pretty tasty. The environment could make its way more up the feet of the model. I do like that it's it's pushed into it. I mentioned this earlier in the video. This model has weighed down on its environment because it'd weigh thousands of tons, whatever it is, at the size it's at. What to criticize? I think the golds could have a few more highlights on the trim. You know, it come up there and that'd add a little bit more depth to it, but it is super effective, dude. Really, really, really nice. Maybe on those pistons, you could have some suggestions of oil or lubrication or something. Love the knee pad, but yeah, dude, that's great. I'd like to see something next to it for scale. They're so big. My favorite bit of this is that shot of the tally marks on the wood. It looks so organic. I would guess that Stuart Sayer maybe has a background in military modeling, either that or you've paid massive attention to your reference materials, and regardless, you should be super proud. That's got presence, undeniably. Weathering on the gun's barrels, maybe that would be cool as well. Wow, that is sweet. So Tobias Lunt from Derby in the UK. Just really like what this has got going on here. Maybe I'd have the silver go to slightly more aggressive chipping. Those squares, those checkerboards are legit though. They are amazing, Tobias. Like that is some time you've put into them. So I think your like the blade that the guy's got, the metallics could be going a bit more shiny on the edge. You know, that's going to be touching. It's not going to be touching stuff. It's going to be tearing it to shreds. It should be shinier on the edges because it would be constantly being cleaned. There's no opportunity for something like that to build up anything because it's going to scrape it off whilst being used. So have a Google of some circular saw blades for that. I really like most of this so much that it's quite difficult to pick any areas for criticism. I think there could be some more rusty weathering on the steel sections, particularly you've got that bolt on the chest which gets darker in the recesses. I just would love to see a bit of rust in there. And then the base, you've used flat agrellan earth. I think a wash and a dry brush on that would go an extremely long way. And the rest of the model is executed to such an incredibly high standard that I feel it's just a bit strange that hasn't had that. You could get away with doing a couple of stages of careful washes even where it is now. I know it's scary to say when the model is this much finished and it's got a lot of stuff in its basing environment, but you could do a couple of washes. Don't worry if they get on the grass, just work them into the grass, into the base of it. It'll just help tie it together really. But yeah, that is awesome. I'm actually going to read what's been written now. I got back into miniature painting about August last year after 15 or so years away. Never used to be very good, just base coat and highlight. After watching loads of YouTube on how to paint, I gave it a crack. This model is the first thing I painted since my youth. You kidding? Fairly happy with it apart from the verdigris effect. The verdigris is pretty good. Your first stages should have been diluted more. The first stages of the verdigris. This model probably took me about 90 hours or so to paint. It shows, man, it's awesome. I have no intention of doing armies. I just like painting to the best of my abilities. Any critique is welcome. Okay, well, we've covered that. I should have read it before I started, but this is done really nicely, dude. Just think about these objects in real life, in their environment, and add a little bit more to the base, and I think it'll be awesome. But that is like display worthy and amazing. So that circular saw and the claw, they would be scraped clean. They would absolutely be scraped clean. Have a look at heavy metal examples of their Ghazghkull frackers and stuff like that. That's something that really stands out to me, but it's wonderful. I absolutely love it. Please send in some more stuff. Really nice. Great freehand. Okay, yeah, absolutely lovely. That is the end. We ended on a high note. So I really enjoyed this. I love steel, I love weathering, I quite like robots. I don't know anything about the 40k lore, unfortunately, which isn't very helpful, but you know, I really do get a kick out of seeing stuff like that, and people have sent in such interesting stuff. So thank you very much for the submissions. What was your guys' favorite? I don't know what to pick. I really liked the last one. I loved the trench stuff going on the massive Titan that the guy painted 2 years ago, and then that really high-end knight with the AK interactive filtering and military techniques used on it as well. I liked. So I've already got 3 close favorites out the ones that I can remember. Let me know which one you thought was the favorite, or if you've learned anything from this, and if you enjoyed us having a theme, so the robots and mechs, let us know if you liked it, and let us know what you think we should do for the next one. I'm always happy to look at people's metallics. That's it. Really enjoyed this. Again, submit at artis-opus.com to have your miniature critiqued or reacted to. Thank you very much for tuning in. Please like, comment and subscribe. Check out all of our products at artis-opus.com, particularly Series D. You know, we spoke about large volumes on here and, you know, highlighting metallics. Check out our Warglaive tutorial. on how I approach metallics, because I think it's a really efficient way to get amazing results really fast. A couple of people actually referenced that from the submissions that we had today. Anyway, thank you very much for tuning in. Hit that bell notification to be notified of future content, and we will catch you in the next video.